Welcome to the Podfather.me. And today, my guest, a lot of times people are impressed with me when I've got over 1,500 episodes released and I'm podcasting for 7 years. But my guest from, I believe it's Los Angeles in California in the USA, has over 6,000 and he's been doing it for 9 years. So please welcome Adam Torres.
Man, Roy, it's an honor to be here and to meet the Podfather in the flesh. Come on, man. What a great name. I'm in.
So I was looking, you've got a lot of shows, and I think some that you've kind of parked and you're currently doing a lot. So what's your total amount of shows that you've actually done?
So I've done 9 shows total, and I'm in entertainment. So ultimately, I have some producers in New York that are pitching other shows, some producers in LA too. So it's not really, in my opinion, the quantity. It's more so like the quality of the project. Like, what am I trying to get across? What do I want to create for the audience?
So with that amount of shows, I know I go back and look at my earlier ones and I cringe. I go, oh God. Like you have a lot of experience now with this.
Yeah.
What tips would you give people to start off that you wish you had got when you were doing it?
Okay, so first off, for everybody listening, I wish that I would have started sooner. That would have been the first thing. So if you're listening to this and you haven't started, start now, start today. Right after you listen to this, I want you to just go on one of the platforms, set up a show and get it done. Because in the beginning, Roy, I fought it. Like I fought it. The other co-founder here, Chirag Sagar at Mission Matters, he told me we need a podcast. We want to have a podcast. And I'm like, man, I'm not doing a podcast. I don't have time for that. I don't even know what a podcast is. And the very first show I did took me a total of 15 minutes to launch. I just went on one of the platforms, set it up, started it, and guess who the first person I interviewed was? It was the person that made me start it, Chirag. I didn't know what I was doing. I said, "All right, you're my first guest slash victims. If we're gonna make me do this, then you're getting into this too." So I interviewed him. So the first tip is just get started, and I'll tell you why I think right this moment is like we're in the renaissance, we're in the golden age of podcasting, and people don't even know that. So if you put it into context, YouTube, over 150 million channels out there, whether they're active or not, who knows, over 150 million. Google it, maybe there's a little more, maybe a little less, but podcasts, there's like 4 million. So what this means is if you knew, in my opinion, from the macro side of things, if you knew that YouTube was going to be what it was going to be, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, have 150 million episodes, would you have Roy, I don't know, would you have started a YouTube channel way back when?
I
What?
started early enough. I was, I think, 2009, and I'm actually reading a book at the moment. Daryl something, I forget but
Yeah.
he worked with Mr. Beast. And I
Mm.
didn't know that YouTube was actually originally planned to be like a dating site. And then they realized,
Really? I didn't
yeah,
know that
that
either.
they were amazed then that, oh, people are uploading hobbies and things like that. But they sold it fast. Google obviously realized, hey, this is good. They got 1.65 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
nice.
looking at YouTube's growth, one of the things that made it possible, in my opinion, was the idea that you could monetize small shows, you could monetize small channels. So it encouraged creators to come to the platform. Well, in podcasting, that's just really happened in the last couple of years. If you think about ad attribution and being able to sell a certain amount of downloads. So if I'm right, which maybe I'm not, but if I am, one day there's going to be 10 million podcasts, 20 million podcasts, 50 million podcasts, 100 million podcasts, whatever the amount is, 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So if I'm right and that does happen, man, wouldn't you like to be getting your podcast started now? You'd be in that, like there's only 4 million of them. You got yours started. You started building your catalog, building your work, building your SEO based on the content that you're creating, and also building relationships. So I'm like, first off, start now, Roy. If they don't got a channel, start now.
Exactly. And the thing is, when you do a podcast, the thing is like, not everyone does it, but I encourage everyone to do it. Do video as well, because you can have the audio out there and the video, and then you're getting double the audio. Sometimes a video channel will do 10 times better than the audio. You just don't know what's going to resonate.
Yeah, I like both. And then for video, also now you have social media content, right? You can chop up those videos. You can put them on Instagram. You can put them on you. So in our channel, we'll put them on like Ask Adam Torres across. We have Instagram, TikTok, all the other different
What
platforms. So we
was
put
that?
them all.
Ask what? I didn't hear that one before.
Uh,
Ask.
Ask Adam Torres. So that's the handle that we use across the board. So people want to see the content, have examples. That's where you go.
Okay, okay. And I see that you're using threads as well. I mean, I never got into it, and then I heard it didn't take off as much. What's your thoughts on threads? Do you think it was just too early and it might take off, or where is it going?
Yeah, with Threads, I just see it as low-hanging fruit. I mean, it's already out there. They created the platform. I'll give you an example. Right now we have, so one of the things that we do here is book publishing as well. And Amazon launched this thing where they had these stories and Amazon they discontinued the product. And we just got the message and they've been winding it down. And it was around for about 2 years. It didn't work. So guess what? Threads may or may not work, but I can tell you this for a fact, we have an audience on Threads. And not only do we have an audience on Threads, but we've had engagement on Threads. And some people have followed me that have found us on Threads on other platforms because we track that so we can see it. So let's just say that sometimes a novelty or something small like a Threads, I might have like 500 followers there, like it's nothing and it may seem silly, but some of the people that were there followed me to Twitter. They also followed me to Instagram. And let's just say that the algorithm for Threads was pushing out my content maybe a little bit more than it would on something else because other platforms that are huge and established, like Instagram, doesn't need me. They don't need my content, right? They don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, so maybe you're reaching 10% of your followers if you're lucky on Instagram and not doing paid, if or whatever the exact amount is. Put it in Roy's comments and correct me if you're listening or watching this on YouTube. Tell me I'm wrong, and then put the time mark and tag Roy so that he could be like, I didn't know I brought this guy on, but but for Threads, it's worked. Like for me, it's worked. We've had people that have converted over. For me, I'm looking for a long-term audience because I'm in the podcast space. This is the way I view it, Roy. Somebody, if let's say they're going through their feed, they find you on Instagram, they click on the button, right? They like it. That took them a millisecond. Maybe they read the comments, maybe they didn't. I don't know. If somebody finds your podcast or finds you somewhere else and then takes the time to listen to you, that's equivalent to them instead the opportunity cost. If they spend 30 minutes listening to your episode, they would spend 30 minutes listening to your podcast versus watching a Netflix episode that's maybe cost 50,000 or $500,000 to produce. And they gave me more than a millisecond of their time. They gave me maybe a full half an hour. They listened to the whole episode. Maybe they listened to 2 episodes. So now they gave me an hour of their time. Maybe they subscribed and they're going to be a lifetime listener. We don't know. But the value of going to get each and every single subscriber, it's gold, man. And then maybe they're going to tell their friends. Like you don't know. So when I see something like Threads, I'm like, man, that's low hanging fruit. Do it. Why not? And if it disappears and if it goes away, it's okay. It won't be the first one to go away. It won't be the last one to go away. The first platform I ever built was called Periscope. And since you're old school, Roy, since you were in YouTube pretty early, you remember Periscope. I used to walk around Beverly Hills for hours streaming. I was one of the very first streamers and on Periscope, and I had thousands of people all around the world watching me stream. And I was just doing it for fun. I still had a job. I wasn't full time in entertainment. I was just working in finance. On my lunch break, I would walk around on this silly thing called Periscope, and I would be streaming. And I built an audience and people all around the world that were watching, and I thought it was cool. Periscope went away. Twitter bought them and killed it. Okay, I do miss Periscope, by the way, just if anybody cares. But it's okay. I built an audience from that, and some of my audience from Periscope are still following me on other platforms. What is that, 10 years later? Yeah.
And like you mentioned, say with the threads, a few might come in. But what I've noticed is sometimes a person will come in and they love your content and they'll binge. It's
Yeah.
like going into Netflix and binge watching a series. They will
Yes.
listen to all. So, I mean, with like some you will,
Your
like, why not?
catalog, Roy.
Yeah.
And with your catalog, if they're binging, that's some downloads, man. Just turn that thing on and it's a day later. I'm still listening to Roy. I haven't finished the podcast.
So I saw with like Instagram and LinkedIn as well. You've got a decent. They're ones that I don't like. Facebook works better for me. I go into like the Facebook groups. That's just something I have all the channels for
Yeah.
the Instagram, but I never kind of. I don't know what I was doing. Right, I never made it work. Like I don't know how you've got like 18,000, nearly 19,000. Which is a very good size. How did you build that up?
So it was a lot of the things that we do are we'll have like events. So I do a lot of events. I do a lot of traveling. I'm in front of a lot of large audiences. So for example, right now you probably for those that are watching the video, they'll see like a little curtain here. They'll see a little backdrop. It's not my normal backdrop, and I have on a headset, a bit like a broadcaster's headset. Which I wouldn't normally have if I'm in studio. The reason for that is I'm in Miami and I was covering the FII Institute Summit. So it's called FII Priority. And the opening speaker was the president. Elon Musk was there, like some of the top dignitaries. A lot of the Saudis came over. I mean, it was a big, big conference. So what I'll do is I go to, big conferences. I cover them as media, and I create content from that. So what I do is I kind of separate myself somewhat from the competition by doing certain things. I shouldn't say competition, but I just create a different type of content. And what happens is it's unique. It's unique. And anybody can do this, by the way. I'm not saying that they have to come and do exactly what I'm doing, but I'd like to think about, okay, what can I create that's unique that you really can't get anywhere else, even though it's the same medium. So that particular, for example, type of content, I'm going to be releasing a clip later on I think tomorrow, actually. Today's Monday, February 24th. So if you're listening to it after that, it'll be released and you can see the example. But I'm going to really be releasing the clip, and the clip's going to have me at the conference. It has some of the crowd. It has the president. It has a little clip of Elon Musk. It has some. You're not going to see that anywhere else. There's not another, to my knowledge, there wasn't another podcaster in the room. So that being said, but you know who was in the room? CNBC, Bloomberg, all the big boys. But here's the key. This is the one place where we actually have an advantage over them, because they're not going to create any social media. They're not going to have somebody doing a vlog selfie style video. The day that CNBC does that, they'll be really smart for doing it, by the way. And then their social media will actually have some traction, but that's not their game. So for me, that's what I could do to separate myself, I believe, from all the other people on Instagram. Now, I will say for others, you don't have to listen to what I just said and say, oh, well, I can't do that. Or, oh, how am I going to get into a conference like that? Or, oh, yeah, but I don't have your experience. For the record, I've seen people that I follow on Instagram and other things that they're just really good at telling a story. They can tell a story like no other. I follow this one person. I swear to you, it is the most interesting cup of coffee I ever see in my life. When they describe going to get a cup of coffee and they show their day and you see all the smiley faces looking at them. And I'm like, I wish I could do that. I wish I had that talent. They have a bigger following than me, by the way, on Instagram and on TikTok. But it's funny to me because I'm always like, how can I got to do all this other stuff and this person can go get a cup of coffee and make a better video than me? Which I'm not jealous. I'm happy and I learn from them. But I just say that other piece so that when people are listening, that you can understand, man, you can make going to get a cup of coffee interesting if you work on your storytelling abilities and you really master the platforms.
Like speaking of platforms, there's so many different tools and different things out there. I mean, we connected on Pad Match. Is there any tools that you would recommend that you found benefited, helped you in your journey?
Tools for production, tools.
Yeah, like I mean, like I use Adobe, for enhancing the sound, but everything was kind of like years later. You're going along, and you're going, "Oh, I wish I had heard about that before."
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, so we run a podcast agency on the back end. So one side of our business is the media side. The other side is a podcast agency. And on that side, we've launched over 200 shows for clients. That being said, we've used every platform. I mean, everything from Megaphone to Buzzsprout to you name the AI tool. They're constantly testing my team's constantly testing different tools, especially with AI and like some of the clips and the clip functionality that's coming out. So we probably are testing 5 or 10 different clip cutting tools at this point, and we'll use multiple. So I guess I'd give you more of a theme than one specific tool, and the theme that I would, and just it's just because we're using them. So for example, but I will give you some names. So because I do want to give you some content there. I record on StreamYard. We have some clients that record on Riverside. We have some clients that you're using Buzzsprout. Some clients are going live on YouTube and they're repurposing that video. Some clients are using Zoom to record, and the Zoom functionality got way better over COVID. Like Zoom was the big winner in terms of reinvesting during COVID, so that some of the quality of the video and the rest, like they've really upped their game. So Zoom, some clients are using that. So all what I find though is I more so look at the theme of don't get complacent, like keep checking and keep looking for new ways to stick out and to do things. So for example, in the beginning, Roy, just going back to your point about video, my first maybe 1,500, 2,000 interview or 2,000 plus, I didn't even have video. And I was like, I don't want to have video. It's going to be a pain. And I got to do all this other stuff. And it's going to be a production nightmare. And now we have to create all this stuff. Now, I said I don't want to, but of course we were going to. But I didn't rush it. Like, I wanted to make sure we had the audio component, like our team. I want to make sure their expertise was as good as it possibly could be in audio before we started bringing on the video component, training that, creating processes around it, because everything we're doing is at scale. So, for example, this year I'll do between 1,500 and 2,000 interviews. So I'll do, the equivalent of 40 years of content. So for many creators, if you're doing like, let's say a 50 episode, not for you, by the way, because you kill it. You got a lot of shows and you're recording a lot. But that, so everything we're doing is at scale. So every piece of your puzzle, as you continue to build and add, let's just say, to the bricks of your production process, it can become really easy to get complacent and to say, oh, well, there's a million AI tools for this, or there's this, or there's that. And then you think, well, I don't necessarily need it because what we're doing is working. It may be working for now, but if you want to continue to grow and to continue to be ahead of the pack in terms of growing your show, um, test, especially on around the social media components of things. Like, you want to test, like, one of my regrets is that we weren't doing like reels a little bit earlier. Like, we probably were a year and a half off on, like, we should have been on reels day one. As soon as reels were out and we saw the reach that it was getting, we should have been on that one, and we lost a lot of reach because of that, because we probably, it still works, by the way. I'm not saying, for anybody listening to this, don't take that the wrong way, that you should be doing reels even now. If you're not doing reels, it's fine, it's okay. But Roy, you probably remember in the early days when reels first came out, if you put out a reel, you had a couple thousand views. You put out anything. So now it's not the case. Now you're not. It's not going to happen. You're still going to get hundreds of views, which is, it's still respectable. But in the beginning, it was thousands of views for nothing, with no cost. So we missed some of that organic stuff by about a year. I say maybe a year and a half of when it was like the heyday. And so now our culture as a company, we kind of internally, now when something else is working like that, even if it was on a new platform, like, we're going to definitely try and double down and make use and take advantage of that.
Even with the Polish one, because I create the shorts. I mean, I might put out 6 on the Facebook group, and sometimes you get 10,000 views in a week, just them 6, and then like that, they're massive numbers. And
That's amazing.
yeah, you wouldn't. And there's other ones you could put out. You might, as you say, get a couple of hundred, but that's what it is. So you like, you're talking about StreamYard and stuff like that. So I do a live show sometimes with a panel, and we interview international famous people like Dr. Peter McCullough and Mickey Willis and things like that. And one of the girls that organizes it, she does kind of like the intro, but then she's doing all the back end stuff.
Yeah.
And I do a live one with a friend weekly, kind of exposing everything and just current events and things like that, but with positive solutions to do it. And I know reaching out, doing it live, will probably get 10 times more numbers. But it's like, if we were doing that now, you're not present. And I know that there's a lot of people that they can put it out live, but it's not live, but they're there then to watch it in the comment. Is that something that you've experienced, or what's your thoughts on that?
I like going live. So I have I at this point in my career I record every different content, everything from recorded to literally over the phone. Still, I still do some interviews like that that are audio only, like VoIP. I do some recorded like what we're doing right now, but I do in person, I do on stage in front of a live audience, all of the above. So any different type of ways you can think of recording, I'm doing. But that being said, I all of my virtual interviews that are video are live at this point. And the reason I recommend live is because I feel you get more out of the guest. Like especially one-on-one, something about the nerve, something about the energy, something about when they wake up in the morning and they know they're going live, something about that little bit of anxiety. It's kind of like you're going to school. I don't know, like are the kids gonna like me at school? I don't know. It's kind of like the first day at school, especially for individuals could be that are they may have done a lot of interviews and they may be very well media trained and other things like that. But there's something about going live, like when you see the so when our particular process, if you were to go on a live show with us, you go in the green room. There's a production assistant. He's warming you up. He's talking. Then I come. I'm dressed in business dress for that particular show, live show. And then what'll happen is, we do the countdown. All right, you ready to go? Everything's good. Three, two, one. You hear the music come on, all the like the opening, everything else, and then you hear the intro, boom, and then so you start off in a live interview at maximum energy because it's for kids because they know they're on. So for me, I mean, and for yourself, I'm sure as a host, you're fine with your energy. You can start off with maximum energy because you've done thousands of interviews, so you're trained. You know how to do it. For a guest, you gotta kind of warm them up. I'd rather warm them up in the pre-show and get all the good stuff like live. So for me, for the guest alone, I like doing it live.
Brilliant, brilliant. And like a lot of the times, people throw in the towel after 3 shows, 10 shows, even a year because they're losing money.
Mm.
And there's, like affiliates and things like that. But what kind of few different ways of monetizing a show would you recommend?
The first thing I'd look at is when you start the show, having proper expectations of monetizing your show. So understanding that a podcast is a marathon. It's a marathon. You're building a real business. So I like to think of it as when you put up a podcast, you're building a radio station. So don't think of it as just like, oh, I'm setting up an Instagram account and it takes 2 minutes to do and who cares? And if it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. I like to visualize and I like to tell my clients, think about it like you're building a brick and mortar radio station. You're not, if you're going to build a brick and mortar radio station, you have to get all these licenses. You have to do the building, you have to do the construction, you have to create that, you have to hire the staff, you have to do all these things. If you were going into it thinking that you're going to make money month one and with what I just described, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You would never think that in month one you're not even going to be you're going to be lucky if you can start hiring or if you got through your licensing, if you got through any of that. So mentally, I like to think about it like you're building an actual business because then you're going to curb your expectation on what's going to happen. Because the bottom line is podcasts, unlike other forms of social media, it's a passive listening experience, and people need to listen to you for years to get used to your voice. They want to get used to your voice. You as a personality, as a host. If you think about like Howard Stern, or if you think about the greats, when you think about these people, the reason they have audiences, it wasn't because one day they started a show and all of a sudden they said one thing and they had this profound insight and now everybody flocked and they went viral and now millions of people are listening to them. No, it's because they've been doing it for decades. They're great, by the way. I'm not saying it's just if you're doing this and not working on your craft that you're all of a sudden going to be wealthy and have an audience. That's not going to happen. You have to work on your craft every day, every interview. But the main thing is if you don't go into it with that expectation of okay, where you want to be long term, then it's gonna be easy to quit. It's gonna be easy to quit if you thought that you were gonna start a show immediately and and then it's going to have this big following. You're going to make all this money. So no, okay, so I'll put that to the side, Roy, because I want to answer your question further. But first is just set the right expectation and make sure that your expectation is realistic, whatever that means for you. I have a client who their realistic expectation, they're pretty successful in entertainment, and their budget year one was $100,000. And why was their budget $100,000 year one? Because number one, they're already in the entertainment business, and they knew, and we could create a plan around what that spend was going to look like, so that they can have an ROI and build their audience year one. But it's a different thing to say your budget year one's $100,000. For some people, that might be small. Their budget might be 500,000, and for some people, maybe even more, because again, they're in the entertainment business and they know how it works. But for the majority, they're going to be hobbyists. They're going to be people that just wanted to, get involved. I'd say don't spend more than you can. So let's say that if you know that that you don't have the budget to maintain this thing if it's not making money long term, then go in it very bootstrapped. Go in it very small. Keep it small and continue to work on your craft over time so that you don't have to quit if your money runs out. Especially if you're paying for like big production, like make sure that you don't do that if you don't have to. Like and that's coming from me who owns a podcast agency. So I'm just saying, don't spend that money if you can't afford to and you expect it to give you this ROI immediately. So let's just say the first tip was start with the right expectations. The second tip was make sure that whatever your budget is maintainable. Like it's maintainable for whatever level you're at, whether it's as a hobbyist, whether it's as a professional, whether you want to be the next, Johnny Carson, who knows, Howard Stern, whatever. Make sure that you have the right budget in mind so that it's long term and planned out correctly. And then the third thing would be, I don't know why many people don't do this, but this is my process. I would say study the entertainment industry. So when you think about other fields like technology or other things like that, where it can be really hard, really, really technical, you have to go to school, you have to learn a lot of things. If you're going to be an engineer, guess what? You need to go get your certifications. You have to spend a bunch of money on your degrees. If you want to be in this business, if you want to be in the entertainment business, every entertainer out there that you can think of, for the most part, has an autobiography or a biography. I've read over 100 books on the greats. You think about your Johnny Carsons, you think about your Don Rickles, you think about, I've studied entertainment from the beginning of entertainment to where we're at now. So you think about your Seinfelds, you think about your Howard Sterns, great books out there. All of the knowledge is there. So if you go back and it's all cheap, Like they give their best stuff. The Dean Martins, the Frank Sinatras. If you study all of entertainment and get some perspective, if that is your goal to be a professional and to have a large show, but study it all. Take it seriously. Take it just like you're going to get a college degree. Buy a bunch of books and start reading them and start seeing if it's for you. Because one of two things are going to happen. You're going to get down the rabbit hole and you're going to be like, oh, this is cool. Like I want to learn more, and you're going to have that thirst. Or if you can't get through the book, if you can't finish it, find another one first off. But if you keep going down it and you lose the hunger to continue and that thirst for knowledge, then maybe it's not for you long term. Like maybe it just isn't. And it's okay. It could have been a hobby, something that you just picked up, and your buddy had a podcast, you wanted to start one, it ran its course. That's okay too. Like that's all right. I could tell you, man, Roy, I buy to pick on myself a little here. I bought like 5 guitars in my life, Roy. And every time I'm like, man, I want to learn how to play the guitar. And then for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, man, I'm sitting there, I'm picking the guitar, I'm trying, and then I fall off the wagon. And then I'm like, oh, my latest one was when that John Lennon movie came out, and I went to that theater. I saw that John Lennon movie, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna learn how to play a guitar again. Ordered another one. Man, I haven't picked up that guitar. I picked it up like 3 times. And guess what? So I say that because I'm human too. I just found that I love podcasting. I love entertainment. I love making people smile. I love making them laugh. Like that's what I love doing. But that dang guitar, man. fell off that wagon again. So I'm human too, man, and I'm gonna try and have my hobbies too that I'm not gonna keep up with. So just think about if this podcasting thing is gonna be in the hobby category for you, or if it's gonna be in the professional category for you long term, and just have fun with it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
But, the exact same thing happened to me with the guitar because my brother has this skill set. He'd hear a song and he can play it on the drums, on the mouth organ, on the guitar. He's a brilliant singer. And I took lessons, I don't know, was I 16? And the guy used to be looking out the window waiting for the hour to end to teach ride. So, and then I got one not so long ago again, and it just gathered dust, So yeah, I feel your pain.
But you could do a couple of thousand podcast interviews, so it's okay, right?
Exactly. And like
So
what
we
you
always have a
said
bunch of
there,
space.
exactly. And what you said there about like studying the grades, because I had a fear of public speaking. So I started kind of reading all the books on that, reading Kennedy, everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it like what you said, but which is a great tip, what people should be doing, study the guys that are actually in that field and the Howard Stein and stuff like that. Because as you say, everybody gives their goal. I read about 100 books a year
Yeah.
because, you can go in, you can pay a course, you can pay 3 grand, 10 grand, whatever it is. And sometimes you get more knowledge on a book that costs you 10 to 20 bucks.
Yeah, it's insane. Howard Stern was talking to, I think it was Jerry Seinfeld, and or no, it was somebody else actually. I don't remember the other person, but they were having a conversation. This is in the book, by the way, that I'm reading, and he's talking about him. He's like, what was it like, when you were younger, when you were growing up, and like, did you need that time? And they both, because they kind of had some of the similar experience, they knew they needed that time. So Howard said something along the lines of, me working in those small radio stations or in those small markets in the beginning, it was a blessing. The reason it was a blessing, and he may not have used that exact word, but it was a gift. The reason why it was a gift is because it allowed him time to find his voice so that he would be worth listening to. And I read that and I'm like, dang. So if you're out there and you're listening to this, or if you have a small show, or if you're thinking about one and it's smaller and you're like kind of getting on yourself because the numbers aren't where you want them to be, man, don't worry about it. If Howard Stern's saying it's okay, King of Media is saying it's okay to have a small show because you're finding your voice, maybe you're just finding your voice right now. When you do find your voice, whatever that looks like for you, that's when your show's going to continue to grow and take, and be a full grown show and have the audience and numbers that you want to attract. But that was his experience. So in my mind, when I read something like that, I'm like, okay, we've had some success. I'm still a baby in media, but we've had a little bit of success. And I'm like, well, I still think I'm a baby. So with that little bit of success, if I'm still finding my voice, if Howard Stern says it's okay, it's okay. It's all right, Adam. Just get out there, record another episode, have some fun.
And like I'd listen, like Patrick Bet David, I believe is one of the top. I really like his.
Yep.
But like Joe Rogan is kind of noted as being, the best in the world, and he's top of the charts. And I like some of his shows, and I don't the mixed martial arts or the comedians because they don't seem to be funny. But he's got some like Graham Hancock and different things. But I was saying I must go back and listen to his earlier shows. Oh, they're cringeworthy. Like, he's there talking to somebody and he's like saying he has to go to the bathroom and he's still recording. It is really. So when you see where he is now, go ahead and listen to his earlier shows and it gives you hope. You go,
Yeah.
Just stay in the game is really the trick.
And what I like about him is that, especially just about his story in general, is for people to remember that he was in entertainment and a comedian and this for like decades before. So he's been working on this. This isn't just like a new thing for him. So it's okay. It's easy sometimes to look at where somebody's at now versus, where they're at or where they started. So I like that you went back and listened to it. It's cringeworthy. You're a better man than me. I will never go back and listen to my catalog. I won't even listen to what I did yesterday. I'm fine. I'm not listening to anything.
Finally, like even with different businesses that I've done, I'd go away and do organic as much as possible, but then I'd kind of either paid Facebook or paid Google. Mm-hmm. And it always hurt me because once you turned off the tap, then your organic was gone and everything. And I just wondering, have you used any paid ads to grow your audience?
I think paid ads are a good way to do it. So especially for things like YouTube, YouTube's pretty good for paid ads. It's especially if you have depending on your it depends on your monetization. Like let's say that you have some other products on the back end as well. Like and this isn't our case, but just to give you an example. So let's say that you have a podcast agency and all you do is you have a podcast that's talking about how to start a podcast and giving podcast tips on like being the best podcaster. If the back end of that model is, somebody's going to listen and then they're going to hire you for production, that can be highly profitable, especially if you're targeting, and that's a very simple example, but that can work for many different people. But normally what I find is in that case, the individuals that are going to do that, they have some type of product on the back end. They're not like paying just to grow their numbers in any meaningful amount so they have more downloads to monetize those downloads through advertising. It's more so you got to have a bigger product in the back end, in my opinion. Like that's when it's really, really, really worth it. But it doesn't have to always be you're selling a direct product. Let's go back to your speaker example. If you're banking, 10, 15, 20, $30,000 a speech, there's a difference between you having 10,000 YouTube subscribers and 1 million YouTube subscribers. If you're reinvesting, you're getting 30,000 a speech and you want to reinvest 10,000 to build that audience, you're going to be able to continue to raise your speaker fees. So you have to, I mean, those are two different examples, one with a direct sell, one with an indirect sell. But there's always some type of monetization thing on the back end. And if you look at even just regular entertainment, I'll give you another one. I was looking at, as I mentioned, I study all of entertainment. So I was looking at Dean Martin and the Dean Martin roast. So for those that are really, really young watching this, you don't know who that is, but just think about it as these guys were the kings of entertainment, him, Sinatra, the whole Rat Pack. So I look at it and guess what? Guess where the Dean Martin roasts were at? The Kraft Music Hall. So guess who paid for all of that Kraft cheese, Kraft macaroni and cheese. So there's a sponsor on the back end of that. So there has to be some monetary thing on the back end, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's an advertiser, but guess what? Kraft Music Hall. You go even further back in entertainment and you'll see the same thing. Who paid for some of the early vaudeville days? That would have been like Tide soap. So Tide was paying for it. If you go to the Red Skeleton like days, it was Tide, and all the youngins are listening. Like, who are this guy talking about? Google it. It's fun. I want to keep these guys' names alive.
Brilliant. You might let people know the current shows that you're working on and what you're covering.
Yeah. So the best way I will say, so ask Adam Torres on Instagram. I have a really easy link tree there. That link tree links to all of our different content. And if you go there, that's really your best spot is Ask Adam Torres on Instagram. But currently, I have a money show, I have a business show, a marketing show, startup garage show, a tech show, which is innovation. I have also a entertainment show, so that's like covering films, things like that. I have a really amazing film festival I'm gonna be covering actually in the next couple weeks. I'm pretty excited about it in NorCal. And those are our core ones. And then I have some exploratory shows that we're pitching to networks, and it's always about trying to scale up or try to figure out how to get the next thing and how to add more value. So we have some things. I'm going to be putting out one that this one's already done and in the can and edited. It'll be on Amazon Prime, I think, by the end of March. We'll have a show out on Amazon Prime with 8 episodes, and I'm hoping that that's going to start building my name in the streaming space because ultimately, we love a Netflix show. You're watching or you're listening to Netflix. Come on, baby, bring that budget.
Excellent. I'll make sure I'll put the links both in the audio and the video. And Adam, thank you very much for all you've shared. You share some great tips that's going to help podcasters, and your message at the start, just start, which I loved. So thank you very much.
Man, thank you, Roy, and keep on recording, man. I love it. I love to see your catalog. I love to see it grow, and I love to have somebody else in the trenches with me, man. I appreciate all you do for us by allowing us to come on your show as well, but appreciate what you're doing for the audience because it's not easy, and so thank you.
That's all for the Podfather, and you'll find everything about me. You can see the Podfather QR code if you're looking for a virtual assistant, va.world, and all my shows and everything I'm doing on roycon.com. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and go into Adam's podcast, and he'd appreciate a 5-star rating and a review as well. It all helps. Until next week, take care.